Yeah, hi, Mirabella. Nice meeting you again or talking to you again. And
Yeah.
yeah, where are you now?
I'm in Las Vegas and like just gorgeous out here. Just like really happy to be in the desert. And yeah, it's a good day. A good breeze. I just started walking outside again, like, getting exercise, so it's a perfect time. It's a perfect time of year for that here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
really great outside with
Yeah.
the blue sky and clouds and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Things are blooming and the birds are out and yeah, the bunnies are it's cute. It's not what people think of Vegas when they hear you live in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
We're 1,000 feet above the strip and it's really quite serene and here. I just went for a walk the other morning and a coyote just walked in front of me on the street, crossing the street. And yeah, you don't get that, in the streets of Los Angeles and what have you. So it's good. It's good.
yeah, but it's not your original place. You moved to there because of your breast cancer or and so
My parents live here. So my parents retired here. We're originally from Chicago and Northwest Indiana is where I was raised. And they moved out here about 18 years ago. And so yeah, when I after I was had the diagnosis, I was living in the South, and a few months later came back here just to be, have the support of family.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot when you have a support of your family and friends, and you have a
Mhm.
crowd around you, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's been a long journey, those relationships.
mhm.
Because I think I felt like isolated already before the diagnosis, and then just even more so with it. And I had the support of my family, but you still, feel like you're going it alone. So it's been quite a beautiful circle of like I was sharing with you earlier, like about how intense things get, but at that like the highest like probably level of intensity when I had my biggest moment was like when I realized how much my family is there for me and loving and supportive, and I needed that. I needed to like let them in on this situation with me. I kind of wanted to keep them out of it. Like I didn't want to impact them intensely with what was going on with me, but at the same time that was keeping me more by myself and isolated and feeling kind of like alone in the situation, making decisions because they don't really know how to help you when you're going, like, just to jump in. I think when you're going through it in alternative ways and you're not exactly sure what you're going to be doing next, people around you don't really know how to help you.
Yes,
And this became clear to me when somebody like literally told me that in December, right before I ended up in the ER. And they said they had just done all the conventional. A cousin of mine, um, right off the bat, she did all the conventional route, and she told me like she actually was like honoring my path because it wasn't that way, and you have less support. People don't really know how to show up for you, and I realized like in that moment what I was separating myself from was that like support that I really needed because I did not know how to tell people what I was doing because I didn't know from one step to the next
hmm
what I was doing. So it was hard to have a dialogue with anyone. It was hard to ask for help.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
And when your healing journey started, 2 years ago, you told me 2 years ago.
2.5. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And at first, you tried it with meditation and other stuff.
Well, meditation came a little bit later, but I started with trying to follow like the Gerson therapy on my own. Um, and then I ended up doing like the Budwig and cannabis because I didn't know this at the time, but I started detoxing way too fast. I didn't intend on detoxing. I just thought I just didn't have a big appetite, and I was just doing like a lot of juicing and a lot of like real simple food. I lost a significant amount of weight, got brain fog, all that stuff like within the first month, and I hadn't had anything done. I hadn't had any surgeries or any medications or anything, but I had severe weight loss all of a sudden right after the biopsy, and the brain fog, and it was I didn't really understand why, and then later I understood that a lot of people do end up kind of detoxing too fast. I don't know all the science. I don't, it just is what it is. But I added in like the Budwig and the cannabis to halt that. And then I ended up at CHIPSA hospital in Mexico, in Tijuana. And it was there that I got like committed to a daily meditation practice, because not because of CHIPSA, but I was living outside the hospital on my own. And I'd been following, I don't know if following is the right word, but I got really into Abraham Hicks right around the diagnosis. Somehow they popped into my YouTube when I was searching for God knows what. And it was kind of like, they were like my big, they've been my big foundation for all this. And so when I got to Mexico is when I really started hearing about them talking about meditation. And so I just did that. And I feel like even right now, that was the meditation practice has been my biggest helper, my biggest asset. Even we had a brief conversation, and then somebody came over just now in between our jumping on this call, and her daughter went through this also, and did the whole conventional, and everything has been a huge support for me when I started conventional, which is where I just was at. I know we jumped around in the story just now, or I did. But she was saying, you went to, you going to CHIPSA, because I guess they're talking about how well I'm doing post, not fully post, but I'm in the midst of the conventional treatment, how well I'm doing, and that the physiology change in me that they assume happened at CHIPSA is what's helping me do so well now. And there could be some validity to that. But that was, 2 years ago. But I didn't say it at the moment, but for me, meditation has been the biggest contribution for me. That's my feeling for myself. So yeah, so you mentioned the meditation, and so that's been my journey with it, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting that you give so much space for meditation, and it helps you to make the right decisions and helps you on your way. And I think it's a good thing. But yeah, at first, when I met you first, or I have spoken to you first,
Mm-hmm.
they're really into this meditation stuff, and yeah. But
when we first met, yeah, I was introduced to Joe Dispenza.
yeah.
And then when I met you, yeah, I was doing a lot of his meditations. And I guess I kind of go back and forth. I kind of just, sometimes for me, the simplicity of what I learned from the Abraham meditation is kind of what I need, like just that simplicity, and to connect with my breathing, and not like too much outside. Because sometimes you get into these deeper, longer meditations, and sometimes you can get in your head about the process of it more than just connecting in such a simple way with your inner being, and getting quiet and just disappearing for that time. And sometimes those longer meditations, that's probably, I think, where I was at when I met you, just help really like unravel some things, and kind of when I got like really truthful with myself during some of them, because you have to kind of work in those meditations and uncover things you want to change about yourself. So I couldn't just at the beginning like gloss over some of these deeper perceptions I had, and doing his work made me like get real with myself, and they did. It would just, and so when I would find myself getting stuck, like noticing my thought patterns, so then I can go back to some of those meditations, because then they help me not like call myself out, but like really figure out what it is that I'm doing, thinking, and clear it and replace it with what it is I really want, so it makes you be more specific with what you're wanting to create.
Yes, that's right. It's more you have a conversation with your inner self, and you get more closer to yourself.
Yeah.
When I do meditation, I really can find out what I really want to do, or what my way is about. And also when I do more this medial meditation, when you breathing, but you think about pictures you wanna where you wanna be, or maybe I have a conversation with my tumors and I use a dragon with that, and that helps me to get a feeling if I like things or therapies, or get also to my inner self too.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would try to say. um, and I think you are a big person doing that too, because we have spoken a lot about isolation and feeling isolated to all
Mm-hmm.
the stuff around us, and I think that our way to get healthy again has to do with that, to handle maybe you have the feeling you be isolated, or you can change it if you want, and you have the control. I think it's a process, and meditation
Yeah.
can help with that.
Yeah. And I think that like with the meditation and connecting with your inner being, then you realize like you're never really alone. So
Yeah.
that like now if I have a thought of like, oh, I don't have community, or I don't have close friends around me or something like that, then like I have this like it's a safety. And I think that's one of the parts of like reconnecting with your inherent well-being is feeling safe. And for me that was huge, like just like that notion of like I'm safe in the universe, all life loves and supports me. And having that consistent meditation practice where you're connecting with your inner being, and you know that for a long time you're like, I'm not sure if I'm really connecting or if there's really somebody there or this inner being there, but over time you do, and then you just fall into this trust. And now, yeah, it's just um and I think that's what helped, part of what helped like release the fear of like what's going to happen, am I doing this wrong, am I doing this right? Like at one point I was like, I made a total mess of my whole thing. And and then you just kind of, yeah, it's just, I didn't want to come through this without that feeling of like like once you can get back out in the world, because I have been isolated for a long time, that like I want to feel safe when I'm go back out there in a way. And that's like where the meditation is. And with having any kind of imbalance in the body, it's just like knowing that like my well-being is dominant. And it's not because I'm just saying it, it's because that's what I believe the universal laws are, that well-being is dominant. And it all ties together. Anyway, that makes sense.
Yeah. But your story, it's very special because you started with a alternative way, and now you do the classical therapy.
Hmm.
The most people do it differently, the opposite ways. They do first the classic therapy, and after they change to do something different when
Yeah.
it comes back or so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think when I started, it it wasn't even a possibility for me to do conventional as far as like my mindset. I could have done it at the very beginning, and I was urged by doctors I didn't know, that um, I had to do 6 months of intense chemo and then surgery. And then they said if I don't want to do chemo, I had to do surgery like right away, like the next, like right away. And none of that was even in a possibility for me. I had no desire to do any of that. I was too scared of I was scared of all the things I'd heard about what could happen. And even a simple surgery, lumpectomy and all this, I had like no inner like trust or faith in that process. Um, Chemotherapy, I mean, the whole thing just scared me to pieces. I had just had no desire, and I hadn't even told my family yet about it. So I waited like 6 weeks or something to tell even my close family. So I wasn't going to start something. It was just not a possibility for me. And I learned a lot when I went to Chipsa. I learned a lot of other people's stories. I learned a lot also from watching like Chris Work's interviews with people. And I was also concerned for a lot of the stories I heard when people started conventional and then it came back, and then you would hear doctors or whoever say it's much harder to do the holistic or alternative approach once you've done conventional. And you just hear so many stories of things like not working out, and also my state of mind where I was not in a good place. So emotionally and mentally, like I just wouldn't have even been able to handle any like symptom, any negative side effect or effect. I know people say there are no side effects. It's just a direct effect of being on any of these drugs. So to me, it just, I wouldn't have survived it, period, for all kinds of reasons. And then I guess little by little, like even going to CHIPSA, I felt when I had my first reaction to just vitamin CK3, I had an intense reaction and I freaked out. Like I started crying because then I finally actually felt like a patient. And I was like, what did I do? Like, why am I here? Why am I putting myself through this? And, so I had that experience anyway, but coming around to do conventional, like all that, I don't know if I can even unpack it as succinctly right now in a few minutes, because so much occurred for me to get to that place where I was okay with it. And I shared how I was in the ER all of a sudden at the beginning of January, and it was really dramatic, I guess. They didn't expect, when I walked into the ER, they didn't think I could have walked in there, like literally walk in there. Like I should have had like organ failure, all kinds of things, because I had severe blood loss from a wound I shared with you, from an alternative treatment I did on my own, the black salve. So it was pretty traumatic. And I had to have like 4 units of blood. And that was my first experience with Western medicine in this whole journey. So I'm like 16 hours in the ER. And when I realized I was losing blood and I was very, 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 very weak, like I literally couldn't walk from here to there without having to sit down. That like I got that something serious was going on. But when somebody said you can't just fix this like with food, you have to have a blood transfusion. Like if your iron gets too low, if your hemoglobin gets too low, you can't just take I don't know, iron supplements or liver or whatever. But I was thinking, I'm not somebody who gets a liver transfusion. I mean, a blood transfusion. Like it just it just seems so far removed. Like I don't know anybody who's had a blood transfusion, and that just seems so weird. But it's what had to happen. And the next week we went back to another ER just to test myself to see if it had dropped, and it didn't drop enough for them to give me a transfusion. But the PA, the physician assistant, was so concerned that she didn't feel like it was a kind of like a ethical obligation that they wouldn't release me, that I would agree to stay and do some testing. And in that moment, because the ER the week before did not, they just released me at like 3 a.m. without any follow-up or anything. And I had this moment with this compassionate physician assistant. I was resistant to her. And then when she came again and said, like, you don't need a blood transfusion, but I don't feel right letting you go. Like, what if something happens? And I just had this real clear moment of like, I'm afraid of getting any testing, and why. And things aren't getting better. And if I go home, like things got real. Like they say, the shit got real. And so I agreed to stay overnight. But I also had like such a clarity that that everything was gonna be okay. Like I told her, like, I promise you, I have like nothing else going wrong with me. It's just at this tumor site that she was worried I was having internal bleeding, something. Why was I losing so much blood? And I did a CT scan and everything was clear. And I just kind of knew. And we were talking about this when I decided to do, it was during that time I'd seen a breast surgeon and things just got clear. I saw a wound doctor who said he couldn't do anything for me. I had to just have it removed. And it was such a burden that I was like, just remove it like right now. Like, can I see somebody tomorrow and just remove it for me and I'll be fine. Because it was so exhausting, the situation. Like it really, I had no life. And this breast surgeon I went to, she referred an oncologist, which I was like, I don't want to do chemo. And she's like, you could do radiation. It would just be really, really intense, as much as you could take. And then a little bit of research of that kind of scared me too. But when I ended up staying in the hospital, one overnight turned into 11 days. And all these doctors came through. Even the oncologist she recommended, the doctors, the hospitalist contacted this oncologist and asked them to come to the hospital. So it was like they were doing all this outreach for me. So I had to meet him, and that kind of shifted a lot for me, because I understood how dangerous my situation was. I understood that going to Mexico to have the surgery would have been probably, you know, I don't want to be dramatic, but like life threatening to have the surgery without doing some treatment to stop it was so vascular that was a danger. Like I could bleed out, and I know this is a little graphic, but I could have literally like bleed out at any moment, and then you can't stop it. You can't just like hold it and have the blood go and then get an infusion. Like you're just, and that's stuff that you just think happens on things you read about or watch on TV or something. You don't really think that you're in that situation. That's so I had to kind of get out of that denial, I guess, that it was something serious could happen. So yeah, so that I was telling you before, that moment of clarity when this oncologist came, and he was at my bedside at like 9 a.m, and I just waking up, and he was like this super nice Indian man, and he was like sharing with me like, this is what we would do, and he like had a smile on his face, and he's like, this is how it would go, and it was like no big deal. Like it was just no big deal. And I was thinking, not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. And then by the end of that day or the next day, when I realized the option to go to Mexico and just have the surgery would have been a big nightmare, and it would have been my path of most resistance. Trying to raise like a god awful amount of money just to do it, because it would have been really intense, and it might not even work, and then I'd be left with an even worse situation than I was already in. And then I was just like, why would I put myself through that struggle? And when I've heard so many times, take the path of least resistance. And I kept thinking that must be the path of like taking the easy way out, or taking the lazy way, or like giving in or giving up. And then I realized that this like really intense day in the hospital, where I just couldn't stop crying, like I'd stop and I'd start again. It was like that, in one of those intense emotional days, you can't like get yourself under control. And I just realized that this, conventional route, having the chemo, I understood it was like for a very specific reason, like was my path of least resistance. And so it was just like that moment of clarity when, like, I think when we don't even realize it, but that's what we're really mostly reaching for, are those moments of clarity when even if the path isn't what you really wanted it to be or expected, that like it's gonna be okay. And I really felt that, and like I felt it through my whole body. And then even though my family didn't realize that I had made this decision, they were still concerned. I wanted to like run off to Mexico, and like I couldn't. I was like, in this hospital, but I was like, look, I already know I'm going to go this route. So I'm already like so far ahead in my mind of like, this is how it's going to go, and it's all going to be good. The people around me were still like scared for me. And I was like, no, it's okay. I know that I'm going to be fine. Like, yeah, I just had a bigger revelation about what it is I really wanted. And it wasn't to like fight against something that I didn't want. Do you understand what I mean? Like I wasn't wanting to fight. I wasn't even interested in fighting. Like I'm not interested in the common term of fighting cancer or anything, or being a survivor of cancer, or being a survivor of the treatment. I think when people say they're a survivor, a lot of times it's really they're surviving the hell of treatment, because they never even really felt sick from the cancer. This guy diagnosed, and suddenly they're in treatment, and the treatment's making them feel like they're going through hell. And then, I think that's the bonding force, is that people went through this hell and then they all got out, and, they survived it. And for me, it wasn't hell. What I did through what I did through alternative was more, I'd already been there, even at CHIPSA, I'd already been there. Some of the treatments there, and I was by myself, were the worst I've ever felt,
Yes.
And
Yeah, it's so funny that you're saying that, because for a lot of people and for me also, chemotherapy, it's something really horrible, but it's
Mm-hmm.
so great that you are got all through this process. Now you're doing the conventional stuff and you are really happy with that, and you look so great with a lot of
Thanks.
power and life in you, and you're really behind what you're doing. And I think that's the biggest point. The therapy isn't the most important thing. The
Mm-hmm.
most important thing is you are behind what you are doing. I think it's the only way
Yeah.
to heal yourself, but you're just healing yourself. The treatments or the therapies are just a tool or tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. And that's, yeah, I was saying from the beginning that you have to resonate with your remedy. That's what I kept telling myself, and other people would ask me, because I couldn't say like, oh, everybody should go to Chipsa, or everybody should follow Gerson, or everybody should do, because I think I had that in my mind, that that's what I learned from a lot of people who go through this. They find like the one particular thing, and then they're just like, it worked for them, and so that's what they're toting. And for me, I couldn't really ever reconcile which path would be right for me, because different paths worked for so many different people, and so many paths did not work for those same people. And so how do you even choose, I think is so stressful. And so like even now when the friend was over and was like, oh, what you did at Chipsa must have really helped you get through this. Well, I don't know, that was 2 years ago. Like how do I know how that helped? What I know is like what's going on between my head and my, I guess, my heart, like, or what my heart's telling my head, however that relationship works, that like, you know, I'm so relieved. I mean, is the ultimate, like right now where I am, I'm just so relieved to like be in my body, to be out like exercising again, to like want to have a conversation, with like, so it was so hard to want to like reach out to friends or communicate with anybody, because I just had like no idea what was going on with me, like, you know, in every way. And now like I think that revelation I had, that was like my moment, and I think
Yeah,
that moment of clarity that I think everybody kind of wants, no matter what's going on, you know.
yeah. I every time surprised that all people are so different and the ways are so different.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
yeah, I'm completely surprised when I'm talking to you today that you look so with people after chemotherapy. You passed it and you look very good. For me,
Yeah.
I would die of it.
Well,
I,
see, and you're where I felt. I literally, like, it's how I literally felt. Like where I was geographically, I I was like, I'm gonna die if I stay here, you know? And I totally get that. And I shared that, like, when I started the chemo, I told the doctor and the PA that, like, my desire, my goal at the end of the 4 treatments, which would take about 2 months, was that I would be able to go on this cruise that my mom and I had planned in August. And I wasn't well in August to go, like, in April, and so I didn't, and I kept getting worse, so part of me felt guilty that I couldn't get myself better. And it wasn't like I had a cut, it was really serious, and I thought I could just will it away or meditate it away, and, it just, like, now I just honor my path 100%. And I think because I had that really, really simple, like, goal, it wasn't like, "Oh, I wanna have a grand survivor story," or something like that. Like, I just wanted to go on this cruise, and it was gonna mean a lot, and it was a spiritual cruise, and, I felt, like, amazing being there, like, just to be feel normal amongst other people, other than not having hair, other than being, like, bald, but then you just kinda stand out, so it's fine, like, when you're in isolation and you don't wanna be seen, I've kind of been that my whole life anyway, but then, like, to be in a situation where you kind of, like, know that people are kind of looking like, "I wonder why she has no hair," you know? It's, but
yeah,
anyway, thank you. I thank you for that acknowledgement, and, sometimes it's hard for me to take in, like, you know, because I didn't really wanna talk to people too until, like, it was over, 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 But now, like, somebody told me when I was having a consult with a guy who just helps. He's amazing. His name's Theo Hansen. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of him or seen him. But I had a conversation with him, and he was like, you're of value no matter what, like if you don't have an NED or not, like and I didn't even know what that term meant, no evidence of disease at the time. And that like really hit me because I really felt like I didn't until I'm fully recovered or 100% well, like I don't really know what to say to anybody. And I think he nailed it. I didn't really feel like I had a value because I was like, I didn't have like a career to go back to. I didn't have a family to get back on track with, or like, it's kind of like starting at ground zero. And so now I guess like I still have some procedures or whatever you want to call it to go through, but like I really feel like I don't know, I'm just happy to be good, feeling good right now. I think just to sum it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you will make it. So yeah,
Yeah.
best way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, like, yeah, I just want to feel good, and I think that's ultimately what everybody wants out of it, just to either get back to feeling good or feeling good when you haven't felt good in so long, you don't even know that it's possible. So it's a relief. And also, my dad's going through treatment now, and the fact that like I can drive a car again, and help out, pick him up or, bring him lunch or just be here for him, and relieve some of that for my mom, like that's also really huge, because I was dependent on them. And that was like the last thing I wanted to do was feel dependent, and take away from their lives. But yeah, so it feels good to be here also for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you plan to go back to your place, or you will stay there?
I don't have a place to go back to. I live at my parents' now. I had a place of my own for about 8 months, because I was like really sure I was getting better. Like, the black salve treatment I did, I was like, it's gonna just take a month and I'm gonna be fine, and I'm gonna just start figuring out what I'm gonna do for a living. And but then I couldn't stay there anymore. When I went into the ER the first time, my mom, while I was in the hospital, moved me out of the apartment and all that. And I was so good with it, because I realized like it's not a negative thing for me to move back in and to get their help. Like I needed it. I needed to not be alone. And that was huge for me. So yeah. So I think for anybody who knows me knows that like that's how I've been my whole life, kind of a loner. And so now it's just like to really super embrace that. And I think like if you and I told you I had learned some about German new medicine, and that did relieve a lot of fear in me. I'm definitely not well versed in it, but just kind of allowing myself to kind of like understand a little bit, like whether you get it in the right or the left, or you're right-handed or left-handed, there's kind of these explanations for what happens in the brain when you have some shocking situation happen, and that's how they explain why somebody gets something on the left side versus the right side and all that. And for me, I couldn't understand why the left side, and I'm right-handed, would mean a mother-child situation. I don't have kids. My mom and I get along great, but then I just had to like let go that maybe there is something missing, like something like me needing the nurturing probably sums it up. And then I don't know, just my relationship with my mom is like even 10 times more close than it was before. And so if I keep allowing myself to like heal those things I don't think I have a problem with, like I think, oh, I'm fine, there's no problems there, but like there's got to be some conflict that I wanted to be able to reconcile, so that when people are really concerned about recurrence and everything. So I'm not sure, I don't give it too much thought at all. Actually, I don't give it any thought. So yeah, just if something came to me or comes to somebody about like something they might want to reconcile that could be inhibiting their getting well, then just go down that path and see what it is. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. Part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much to everybody's stories, and I think because I went through so much of this process in the last 2 years, emotional was big for me, even more than like just dealing with the actual tumor. So I know some of my friends who went through conventional immediate, like how the doctor was trying to get me to do something immediate. I was like, you have no idea, like the mess my life is right now. Like I can't even, I have to unpack all that stuff first. And so I think I have that piece about my situation and everything, and what's in front of me. And I think sometimes, and I'm just saying for my friends who've been through this, I think that after going through all that conventional, now they're like, now what? Like now they're dealing with the emotional aspects of what they went through. So I guess it's just reversed for me, all of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, but it's good. You did a lot before you did the conventional therapy. So you are so powerful to do that now. I think you are on the right way. So you will manage it very easily. And when something emotionally comes up, you will handle that too. I don't see problems with that.
Yeah, because even having like a little negative thought, I have a good understanding now of stopping the momentum before it becomes too big. And I have like a really solid understanding that any of those negative thoughts, I mean, my belief is that anything that manifests in the body is because of like a chronic negative thinking. And that gives me a lot of like peace, because then you know that you do have the ability to find the tools to alter your thoughts, alter the way your mind tends to take over. So those negative thoughts don't last, very long. And then you're like, oh, I'm nurturing my body. Like if I don't want to experience this again, then it's like my number one duty to like make sure my thoughts are in a high place, and not that you have to be perfect all the time, but that it doesn't consume you, is this thought making me feel good, or is it not? Like, is it contributing to the well-being of my cells, or is it not? And it becomes quite simple. And
it's very when I think about stuff like that. So I had a talk with a friend 2 days ago, maybe, or 3 days ago, and about we Germans are very upset very easily, and we always la 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 la, and very negative. So always negative about other people, and guilt. They are guilty for that and that and that. So we make all the other people around us very guilty for our problems. That's typical German. And I had a talk with a friend, and she said, okay, think positive. And no, it's not really working with me, because when I'm not feeling that, I can't think positive. It's not a win-win situation. Makes no sense. I have to be truly myself. So then she said, okay, maybe just wondering about situations, not always shouting and say other persons are guilty or you feel bad or think negative, just wondering what happened around you. And it works. It's really working. When you think, okay, someone comes up, don't be so loud. And normally I would shout back. So, and now I'm just wondering, the people are completely confused. I'm happy the people are not angry any longer. Win-win.
Yeah.
It's not working every time, but I just check it out since 2 days. It's not a long time, but I really, it's changing the situation a bit. And I can I'm a very negative person, so I think very often negative. But in this way, when I just try to wonder about stuff, it changes. So maybe it's something I can go on with that, or it's a positive.
Yeah, I have. Well, when I came in from when we talked before, my mom had closed the door, and I was like, "Am I being loud?" She's like, "Yeah," and I'm like outside, just like. You either don't talk enough, or you talk too loud or too much or something. It's just funny. I mean, it wasn't anything to take personally, but I have those like really great moments when you're in the midst of something, and there's like an incredible freedom when you have the thought of like, oh, I don't have to care about that. You know, I don't actually have to give that a second thought, or that's not my problem. Or I know it sounds like crass to be like, it's not my problem, but I actually practice saying that a lot. You know, when people around you are more negative too, or their conversations are, you know, things that you want to stay on a higher note about. And then I could just practice like something I heard Wayne Dyer say a long time ago to his like grandkids who were bickering. And he's like, I said to them, you know, do you understand like how little I care? And, you know, this is like Wayne Dyer telling his little grandkids who are bickering and wanting his help. He's like, I don't care. Like, it's not my problem. You guys figure it out. And like, we don't have to take on the problems of every single person. And that's where I was. I felt like I had to solve like every single nook and cranny of, you know, other people's problems, or how they said something, or why they said that. And I don't know if that's like an OCD thing or whatever it is, but I had this beautiful practice over the last couple of years of like that literal weight. So it's not like in a moment when you're feeling really, really pissed off that you have to be like, I have to be a positive thinker, because you can't get there from there. You know, you just have to like, you know, like have that next better feeling thought, and that's fine. And that could still be a negative pissed off thought, but at least it's a little bit better than the one you started with. And there's no pressure to be like this perfect, you know, constant ray of light, you know, 24/7, but it is a huge amount of freedom and relief to be like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. You know, I don't have to worry. Like, yeah, just there's so many things that happen in a day that we get obsessed about, like why the person said this way, or why they moved over there and I was over here, or whatever. Just like, you know, I woke up to having a thought like that today, and I was like, why do I care? Something that happened a couple weeks ago, like, just popped into my head, and I was like, you know, it's just a silly thing, not you know, not even really worth sharing the story or anything, but it's just like, why am I caring about that first thing in the morning? You know, why is it in my head? And then to kind of get up and do meditation so that you don't keep having this thinking about the scenario, because there's nothing you can do about it anyway, and you can never really know what other people are thinking or doing or acting on. And so being present in your own life, and people talk a lot about like being present in the moment, but it really is a freeing moment, like that I have permission to not give that another thought, and like I'm free in this moment. And it's just like that's like how I want to like be able to live my life. And so that's why I went on such a deeper emotional journey for so long, because I didn't want to go back out there and the life that in the ways that I was living before. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. Like when they say, when you get a diagnosis or something, a lot of times they'll say it's somebody being able to decide whether they want to stay or go. And we creating our own reality, then something that manifests in our body, you do have an option. And I thought about that a lot when this first happened, that I have the option to skip out if I want to, you know, and if I stay, what kind of world do I want to live in if I stay? And so I didn't have an answer. I just knew that it wasn't the one I was in, you know.
Yeah, but I have the feeling through the whole process after your diagnosis, you are more relaxed now and handle stuff around you differently. So it's not you feeling alone. You know now you are not alone. You have supporters around you. You have other people, say in similar situations, and you can moments let go when they are not really positive, or just leave it, or
yeah
maybe it's to be sick, it's it's anyway it's a process, but it's like I don't know the English word at the moment, Herausforderung, uh, it's something it's like a lesson, or and you manage it well, so you can do it.
Thank you. Thank you. One day at a time. Yeah. One step at a time.
So one of my cat is coming and lying on my lap.
Oh, she's so cute. Oh
He's
my God, she's so cute. I'm gonna like blow up the picture on my phone. I can't.
yeah, but he's a naughty boy. He's a teenager and he's very naughty. It's a moment of calm. But he loves to cuddle also. So he's
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important when you're going through this. My brother thought I should get a little dog, but I didn't have any place to have a little animal or take care of it even. But it is true. You gotta like have something to show your affection towards, and it kind of like raises your vibration immediately. They say, just petting a cat, if you want to shift your point of attraction, you just like take a nap or pet a cat, and then you kind of reset yourself.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I have 3 of them. Sometimes it's very a lot of action here.
Yeah, I get distracted easily, so if I had a little animal around, I think I wouldn't get anything done. Right. Well, I'm glad you have company there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's so good to talk to you again. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm really glad we've stayed connected.
Yeah, please. And I hope we see each other in person a time.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep that open.
Yes.
Keep that open. Well, I'm here for you and everything that you're doing, and I fully support you, 100%. And if there's anything I could do, like literally for you, it's like always hard to like offer and not know what you can really do for somebody. But if there was anything, like promise to let me know.
Oh, that's so cute. Same here. And at first, I wish you get healthy, and then we will see.
Yeah. No, I'm already. I think for me, that's just like that feeling like I'm already. I've been saying that since the beginning. It didn't mean I believed it, but I always said I'm already healed, and for that I am super appreciative. So just off balance, getting back into balance. That's all it is. So
that's right.
That's good. Yeah. Time, like that's how I feel now. I just want to be living, and sharing and connecting. And I know when I need to stay alone. I know when I need to just like hunker down and be off the radar. But all that being said, if you did need any, like just call me whenever.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye.